That's great. Okay, we are going to reconvene for the, this is the 1:30 scheduled hearing for the Mayor's Office of Sustainable Services. And I am seeing still on the panel, I am seeing Councilman Dorsey, Councilman Pinkett, Councilwoman Sneed, and Councilman Burnett, and Councilman Schleifer. So we will get started with Mr. Heimowitz with your presentation. Did you already check to make sure you can share your screen, or is, oh, there we go. Okay, well, I guess Mara's doing that for you remotely. Okay, so take it away.
Thanks, Councilman. So hi, everyone. I'm Dan Heimowitz. I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Performance and Innovation. So just to clarify, we previously were the Mayor's Office of Sustainable Solutions. Now we're the Office of Performance and Innovation. So that includes both CityStat and the Mayor's Innovation Team. So I was hoping to make some opening remarks that speak to the slides, but also go a little bit beyond that. And a few things I wanted to touch on were, one, I think a good example of the work we've done over the last year in terms of our core CityStat work, but also some of the things that really connect to that core traditional performance management work. So I want to talk about that. And then the other piece I want to spend a little bit of time on, because it's so exceptional, and it's also where we are right now, is just the work my office has been doing during the time of COVID, because it's obviously quite an unusual time, and we've been working in some, I think, really important but also unusual ways. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. So first of all, let me just start about what is our office. So the Office of Performance and Innovation includes CityStat, and of course, as you're familiar with, we use data for accountability to improve city agencies' delivery of services for residents. And a big part of that is our stat meetings that through which we review agency performance towards key goals. So that's the CityStat part. A newer piece of our office as of the past year is something called the Data Fellows Program. And that is basically an initiative through which we have data analysts who actually work directly with the agencies themselves. So instead of us kind of bringing people in to ask questions about their data, these are people who actually work with agencies to support them. And then the third part is the Mayor's Innovation Team. This is an office that was started in partnership with Bloomberg Philanthropies a couple of years ago, and we use data and human-centered design to develop new approaches to tackling big city challenges. So that's the office, and a little bit about just sort of how we work. And I do want to use the CleanStat example, which I think is a nice illustration from this past year that I think has been quite positive. So, as you all know, a top administration priority has been making Baltimore cleaner and more beautiful for residents. And that's why we set up CleanStat, which is a multi-agency meeting which uses data to better understand how to improve city agencies' cleaning performance. Around when we started in September of 2019, there were around 15,000 overdue cleaning work orders. In January of 2020, there were still thousands of overdue cleaning work orders when the mayor committed to completely eliminating the remaining backlog by April 1st, which was a pretty ambitious thing given that timeline. And in fact, we basically got there. We were easily on pace to eliminate the backlog. There were fewer than 100 overdue SRs remaining at that point by mid-March. Unfortunately, COVID intervened, but really it was only a couple days away from being completed. So this was a pretty major, achievement, major progress on city cleanliness. And I want to highlight the ways in which the Office of Performance and Innovation played a central role in that progress. And here I want to mention 5 things that I think were important. So first of all, just data and accountability, the stat process itself. So the rigor and process of bringing the agencies who do the work in for conversations around their goals and their progress towards those goals, and digging underneath the headline data to understand what's happening. So that's a core part of it. Second, we don't talk about it as much, but we do often play a key coordinating role between agencies. So in this case, DGS, DOT, and Rec and Parks also contributed to a lot of the cleaning work during this period, and they together completed over 1,000 cleaning service requests that contributed to that overall cleaning backlog elimination. So just bringing all those agencies together, I think, is a key goal. The third piece is the work we've done in terms of transparency and public accountability through the use of public data. So we launched a public clean stat dashboard, which basically includes the same data that we review in our clean stat meetings and shows the goals we're working towards and the progress the agencies are making, and really invited residents to be a part of holding city agencies accountable for delivering. So I think that was really a key part of it. We publicized a lot, drove a lot of attention to that dashboard. So I think the public piece of that accountability process is really useful. Fourth thing is a focus on equity. So each of our stats have included a specific look at equity in different ways, depending on the issue area. For clean stat, that meant looking at cleaning measures across Baltimore to ensure that the cleaning, the services that residents are getting across different parts of the city are equitable. And in fact, when we started this work, there were areas of the city where there was a lot more overdue work. And so I through this process and shining a light on that, and again, getting through the overall backlog, I think one of the major achievements was kind of addressing that fact that for some parts of the city, they were not getting as efficient service. So that in this process that was achieved. And the fifth part, I mentioned this Data Fellows program. So we had a specific fellow embedded with the Department of Public Works who was actually working with them on their operations, developing new data collection systems, and help them develop crew level sanitation data that I think was extremely helpful in helping improve their performance along the way. And Bureau of Solid Waste head John Chalmers has credited how essential the work of that data fellow has been. So just to say this data fellows program I think has been a really exciting new addition to what our office offers. And again, it's about supporting agencies to improve the way they use data, not just about calling them into City Hall and asking them tough questions about their data. We have two data fellows on our team that we deploy to different agencies, but the program has been so popular that a number of agencies have just hired their own data fellows because they found it so useful. So in that case, they're really that agency's employee, but they're given support by us in terms of some of the training and data oversight that's useful. But again, that's another way that we've expanded the sort of data work that our office does. So that's just the clean stat example, and we've also been running performance management processes around public safety, around opportunities for young people, around the operations of DOT, and around cybersecurity over the past year. So that's sort of the core work of our office. But I also want to talk about COVID because again, it's been a pretty unusual time. And during COVID, we basically reorganized our office to support the most urgent needs of the city and basically kind of detailed members of our office to different key functions. So kind of away from our office in some ways to support various urgent things. And I want to highlight a few of the most important things that I think have been really key during this period. And I'm really proud of what the team has contributed. So first of all, just on data, which is something we support normally, we've helped develop the Baltimore COVID dashboard in collaboration with the health department. And I think it's one of the most detailed, extensive public dashboards on COVID in anywhere in the state. And I think we've also pushed the envelope in terms of what we're sharing publicly compared to other jurisdictions. We've been faster to put things out there. And I think that's something that's really been quite positive. In terms of data we're using for decision making, we hold a weekly so-called COVID stat meeting where with the health department and other stakeholders, including the mayor, we're reviewing key measures related to COVID and the COVID response. And I think that's been really useful to make sure that all of government kind of has a shared understanding of where things are at in terms of the epidemic. We've helped establish the reopening framework and metrics along with the health department, and that is the metrics we're using to decide when to go from phase 1 to phase 2. And this is really important because this is uncharted territory, so you need data to help define these decisions. Again, that's all public too. That's on our public dashboard as well, which again is really, I think, really positive. And the other piece that has been, I think, less public but no less important in some ways has been some of the tracking systems, data tracking systems we've stood up to help city government manage during this very unusual time. So, for instance, when we moved as a city government for the first time to teleworking, which is not something we had done before, we had to have a way of knowing who was where in real time. And so we basically set up, frankly, a fairly rudimentary tracking system using spreadsheets, really compelling agencies to report every day, and then giving us eventually a real time picture of teleworking, who was sick, who was still coming into the office. And that was, I think, really important in this period. There's several other versions of that where we were collecting operational data that I think for the first time in new ways that were really important to the city at this time. A couple other things that go beyond data. Our innovation team has 2 team members who have formal design training, and so we've basically seconded these staff members to the Joint Information Center. Emily Iannacone, for instance, has basically overseen the Joint Information Center's resident informed messaging and graphics for social media, print, and video, and she's been a creative force behind some of the city's, I think, really top communications during this period, including the Stay at Home Heroes social media campaign. So they've basically just been working with the JIC throughout this process. We've had one data analyst working full-time with the Emergency Operations Center and has helped them set up their data tracking systems throughout this process. We've had 2 team members working on food distribution, one on data collection, one more on sort of helping organize operations. And then finally, I wanted to point out a team member who's worked extremely closely on developing this new exciting Baltimore health core program, which is going to basically allow the city to hire hundreds of new contact tracers and other community health workers. It's going to give hundreds of jobs to residents. This was a really massive $12 million project to try to coordinate. There's multiple philanthropic partners, multiple city partners, multiple nonprofit partners, and a member of our team did a huge job in terms of coordinating all of these different actors to put that together. This is a really exciting program that tackles addresses both the health challenges of the moment, but also in some ways the economic challenges of the moment as well. So in terms of looking ahead to the next fiscal year, it starts July 1st. I'd love to say we're going to get back to business as usual on July 1. I think that's probably a bit unlikely. I think we're going to need to be continuing to support some of the city's COVID response and helping the city navigate this really exceptional period we're in. And I just would say, as a bit of a bias plug for the office, I think data is more important than ever. These are really hard, difficult times for decision making. You need data in order to guide some of that. So I think our office is more central and needs to stay on this process, in the weeks and months ahead. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking around to see which of my colleagues have questions. I don't see anyone with their hand up, but let me check and make certain.
I have a question.
Okay, Councilwoman Sneed.
So when we talk about data, I'm just curious, are we putting any of this stuff anywhere from when we started to where we are now? Can we go back and are we starting to store any of this? So whether any of us are not in our positions, when the new crew comes in, will they be able, where there'll be some place where we can capture it and then grow off of it?
Thanks, Councilwoman. So first of all, yes, all of these systems are, through various city, both in terms of the data collection systems. We use, Microsoft, SharePoint systems that, everyone has access to. The dashboards we've built are using, technologies that everyone, whoever is running CityStat, should be able to organize. And again, for the public data, it's, visible out there to everyone. I'm, looking at the Baltimore COVID dashboard. That is all public, all available. But again, the underlying systems, those are available to those are not, proprietary to our office by any means.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Councilman Pinkett? Nope. Okay, Councilman Burnett? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. We do have a question that came in on the public chat, and I'm without even seeing who it was from, I recognize it from earlier hearings. Where can we see your racial equity work in your budget, and how do you report the equity? You touched on it in your opening presentation, but how are you advising across agencies and applying a racial equity analysis to their planning and performance? Is that its own dashboard that the public can see?
Yep. Thank you. So, the way we've been addressing it is that, and this is something that I think is largely new over the last year as we've brought this into how we work. It is, equity is a lens that's at the heart of all of the different stats and issues that we're looking at. So for each stat, whether that's clean stat or COVID stat, there is a we have an equity component to that work. And again, it looks a little different depending on the issue. For COVID, obviously there's been huge issues in terms of race, the impact on different races and ethnicities in a way that's been hugely problematic. And so shining a lens on that is really key there. When it comes to clean stat, we've in city cleanliness, we've really tried to look at different geographies of the city, and we want to make sure that neighborhood X and neighborhood Y are getting the exact same level of service and efficiency of service. And so we have those measures that we're looking at. So for each stat, it looks a little different, but we have been committed to making sure that we are, in everything we're doing, putting that slice in there at the heart of the work. And I would argue that's really important, because the stat meetings that is our process. We pull in the data and then we ask the tough questions of agencies. And so that piece is coming into every meeting we're now doing.
So I'm actually going to add the follow-up there, which is, and I'm just checking basically to see if that was a vocabulary slip or if that's a substantive correction that we need to make. You said that part of what you're doing is trying to make sure that every neighborhood is getting the same service.
Same level
of service, right? And so my question would be, and this might be a broader question that we need to discuss in terms of how agencies deal with equity concerns. There's equal and there's equitable. And so is there anything that is being factored in to adjust for years of neighborhoods not getting equal service, now making certain that everyone is getting the same isn't technically the equity frame that we're trying to work through? So how are you, is the data that you're collecting helping agencies look backwards to see how the lack of equity in the past can be addressed now?
And thank you, Councilman, for correcting me. So first of all, just to say, I did misspeak. You're right. In terms of what we're looking at in the stat meetings, it is the outcome of the service, not so in some cases you're going to need to put more resources into a certain part of the city for a certain type of service. We're not here to audit the inputs. We want to make sure that the delivery and the outcome and the experience that residents are getting from their government is equitable. So when I said same level of service, I meant in terms of outcome, but you're absolutely right. That's a very important distinction, because that becomes a slippery slope where you start to justify, things, but that's not no, we're interested in the output, the outcomes, preferably if we can measure it. So that's what we're always looking at. So absolutely. I misspoke.
Let me check now and see if any of our other colleagues have questions. Again, I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand. So before I recess this, I'm just going to make an observation that is not quite a question, but maybe closer to a cautionary tale. In your presentation, you mentioned the data fellows, which sound like a great thing, and you mentioned that some agencies have been so impressed that they have begun to hire their own, who technically don't work for you, and that's where the cautionary tale comes in, because when you mentioned working on cybersecurity, I think many people would be, who know more about this than I do, would say that if you looked at the evolution of IT in city government, many of the problems we deal with today came from the fact that different agencies were so impressed by IT and what it could do that they went out and got their own, instead of the city building a centralized IT structure from the beginning. And the longer agencies worked on their own, doing their own thing, the harder it became for any central entity to wrest control of those individual fiefdoms and really help the city put together a coherent, cogent IT plan. And so I'm just throwing that out there to say, you may want to invest some effort and some political capital in getting those data fellows back under you. It's great to make the agencies pay for them, but if they're as effective as you say they are, then that's all the more reason to maybe continue to centralize the work that they're doing. So that's just more of a 2 cents kind of a thing. And if you get pushed, if you agree and get pushback, give me a call.
Thank you, Councilman.
If there's no other questions from the committee, I'm inclined to recess us until the 2:30 BMZA. Is it, no, what's at 2:30? 2:30, yeah, then the committee stands in recess until 2:30 for the BMZA hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.